Hi, good afternoon. Welcome everyone to Coleman Report Live, May 20th, 2022 edition. I have Lance and Delaney Sexton with me. My name is Joseph Coleman. Bob is out today, but he sends his best. Lance, you and I did a fun webinar on Wednesday regarding closing, and a ton of interaction, huge crowd, obviously a very big topic. I think there's a lot of new faces in the SBA lending industry, and closing's a hot topic. So thank you for being on. Go ahead.
Yeah, we covered some great material on things to pay attention to when you're closing an SBA loan. And just, Joe, you and I both are always saying, if you close the loan well, then the guaranteed purchase is easy.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have a ton of news today, and Delaney, we're going to put you on the spot right off the top. What's going on in Washington? This concerns Fraud Friday. This gives some opportunities for the regulators to extend the statute of limitations. So tell us what's going on with the House Small Business Committee.
Yes, so the House Small Business Committee has committed two bills, one for PPP and one for EIDL. So under the False Claims Act, they currently have a 6-year statute of limitations to investigate and pursue PPP and EIDL fraud. But as we all know, there's quite a bit of fraud, so they're trying to extend it to 10 years. This could go into 2031 and 2032 if this passes. So of course, it qualifies PPP applications, but it also is addressing forgiveness applications and any fraudulent forgiveness applications. And then EIDL, it's the EIDL applications, the EIDL advances, and then the other, I'm forgetting the other advance name. I apologize.
Well,
Lance, go ahead, Lance.
I was just going to say, the thing about this, I want to make sure and emphasize, PPP, the fraudulent applications are still a very small percentage of the overall, but the numbers are massive. And in working through PPP servicing and liquidation, big numbers mean it takes a lot more effort. An example of that is the guaranteed purchase process on 2021 PPP loans. At Fountainhead, we did a substantial number of PPP loans. And even though what we're going to work through in the fall is a small percentage of the overall portfolio, it's going to take quite a bit of effort and work to work through that. And, we're looking at adding some temporary employees to help us work through that process. Same thing is true of PPP fraud and EIDL fraud, guys. Delaney and I were talking about this earlier today, Joe. I believe, I'm a strong believer that we'll be talking about PPP fraud for at least 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And it could be longer.
Yeah, we've discussed that in the past, and I think this just gives them the opportunity to investigate all the false information that they need to investigate. It's going to take maybe years, or that's what they're saying, a decade to get to the bottom of all that fraud. So excellent reporting, Delaney. And you give us a recap of what we talked about with the PPP appeal process, and you wrote about that on Tuesday. And Lance talked about it shortly on Monday, but the PPP appeal process has been updated by SBA, right? Right, Delaney?
Yes, I'm going to throw this one back to my dad, though.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happened is this, I noticed it on Monday, and it may have been there earlier than Monday, but when you have a PPP borrower who submitted a forgiveness application and SBA denied it or did a partial approval, that borrower has the right to appeal. And just want to throw out there, the appeal process has to be completed by the borrower. The financial institution cannot complete that appeal for the borrower. So the borrower says, no, I don't agree with the denial. No, I don't agree with the partial approval. And they submit an appeal. When that process takes more than 60 days, SBA is now given us as participant lenders an avenue to go ahead and get paid on the guaranteed purchase. Now, I'm not exactly sure how SBA will handle the accounting on the backside, but I have successfully submitted a substantial number of guaranteed purchases on partial approvals that were appealed and denials that were appealed. Now, what makes that different? You know, you used to submit a guaranteed purchase, you used to need to have an indictment, a death, a bankruptcy, or be 60 days past due. You know, and that button could have been there for a long time prior, and I just didn't notice it. But now I've noticed you can, in fact, on a PPP loan that's been appealed, when it's appealed, it's still technically on deferment. So it's not past due. There are no payment requirements. But if there is an appeal and the appeal has been in process for 60 days or more, you can submit for guaranteed purchase. I submitted a batch of those on Monday, and we've already been paid on those. So it is a great way to, especially on the 2020 stuff that's under appeal, you can clean up your books by going ahead and submitting those for guaranteed purchase. It's like I said, I hadn't noticed, it may have been there before, but it is there for you. If you have a PPP loan that's under appeal and it's been under appeal for more than 60 days, you can submit for guaranteed purchase, even on partial approvals. If there's a partial approval on appeal, you can submit for the remaining principal balance on a guaranteed purchase. So that's, like I said, that's important to know as you work through the tail end of PPP servicing and liquidation.
Absolutely, yeah. We heard from former Administrator Linda McMahon, friend of the program and friend of the lenders. She said that inflation there's a very interesting thing going on with consumer prices being raised so high that it's tough to get people in the door. And anyways, just give a quick. We don't need to talk about this much, but what's going on with inflation and SBA lending lanes?
Well, I think it has a huge impact on, as an example, Joe and Delaney, projections.
Yeah.
When a borrower creates projections for the loan application, they have to take into account the increased cost across the board. You know, if the only thing that was inflated was fuel prices, I mean, fuel prices is driving inflation in a variety of areas. You take a restaurant, the produce they buy has to be shipped on a truck that's paying, you know, I know in Arkansas, diesel fuel is about $6 a gallon. I can't imagine what it is out in California, Joe. But the point being is it affects food costs. It affects cost of goods. My brother's in the furniture business. Huge impact there. They deliver every piece of furniture they sell on trucks that burn gas, and that's costing more. When he buys furniture, there is now a substantial freight surcharge on every half or full truckload of furniture that comes in. He don't get to just buy it at the price of the furniture plus the normal freight charge. There's now a freight surcharge that he said has a significant impact on the cost of the furniture. You know, I'll offer one more example, and I hate to always use him but my brother and I talk quite a bit. He ordered a container load of furniture, and by the time it got to out where you live, Joe, to California, the freight price quintupled.
Wow.
So he basically said, I don't want it anymore. You can leave it in the container. You can do whatever you want to. But effectively, you know, a bedroom suit that he would normally charge you $1,500 for was going to need to be $3,000 to take into account the increased freight charge. So those are just some examples. But it's not just small business, and I want to shut up after this, Joe. But I live in Arkansas. Walmart is Arkansas. Headquarters is here. Guys, a great stock opportunity, and I'm not an investment advisor as Walmart right now. Walmart announced their quarterly earnings. Their quarterly earnings, they made tons of money, but it was off because, and the CEO of Walmart said, it was off just because of the increased price of fuel. So Walmart stock dropped 25% because of the inflation over a 2-day period of time on one of America's great companies because of reduced net income. And the only explanation Walmart gave was nothing else was different. Sales were up, but cash flow and net profit was lower because of the substantial increase in the cost of fuel. So
Yeah.
It's harder for small businesses because these increases, you don't have this giant pool of money and capital to go to. So small businesses are realizing those things. Here's an interesting fact, guys. Did you know the price of a gallon of milk here in Arkansas is higher than the price of gasoline?
No, I did not know that.
A gallon of milk is increased $1.50 a gallon here in Arkansas in the last 12 months. I'm sure that number is similar everywhere we go. But I mean, you just look at those things. Inflation takes money out of the consumer's pocket, and the consumer can't buy as many items from the small business. So huge impact.
Maybe we can set up a webinar for projections. I think that'd be a great service to the industry right now and very timely.
Oh, absolutely. And taking into account the impact of inflation.
Absolutely. Delaney, this commercial pilot is charged with almost $10 million of PPP. What did Mr. Carl Delano I'm going to let you go with that. What happened with this commercial pilot?
So he was claiming, and this is all alleged, that he had a business that was already in operation in February 2020. They're saying that it was not even created until 10 months later. In addition, he backed this up with fake tax documents, fake reports, and payroll information, claiming he had 493 employees. He did manage to obtain this $9.5 million PPP loan. And it's alleged he might not have used that on the proper reasons. We love to hear what they spend their money on, including about $1.7 million for a personal residence, over $800,000 to start a new trucking business. So there was a little small business somewhere in there. $300,000 for other real estate, a BMW M850 XL, a Land Rover Velar, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that right. I don't know my cars, and $15,000 for plastic surgery, just to wrap that all up.
I imagine the seizure lot is filling up, Lance, with these BMWs.
This one completely drives me. This type of fraud is what really gets under my skin. I have some heartburn when the SBA gives someone who has a legitimate small business who may have, miscalculated the amount of the loan originally, but they spent all the money on payroll, and they get given a hard time in the forgiveness process. But you look at somebody like this, he didn't have employees, and he got a substantial PPP loan and used it. The house and the cars, we've heard that, but the plastic surgery, this one has come up in my walk of life on PPP servicing 2 or 3 times in the last bit. And this guy spent some money on plastic surgery. So these, I'm not saying all fraud needs, it all needs to be prosecuted, but this is an example of someone who allegedly used the money very improperly.
Absolutely, yeah. Moving along, United States Postal Service clerk was stealing credit cards and blank checkbooks, and what was Janelle thinking, Delaney? I mean, this is just classic identity theft, and she's in a lot of trouble for it. So,
I wish I could tell you. She was selling these or giving away these cards and checkbooks to some co-conspirators, and she would get cash back. Now, these co-conspirators would then forge signatures, and another interesting thing is they would write out checks payable to individuals, and some of them were New Jersey high school students. who would also end up receiving some cash for participating in this. So I believe they managed to obtain about $366,000. But in addition, she continued her fraud streak, tried to apply to an EIDL loan. She was already in some legal trouble due to this fraud scheme. So of course you can't apply for an SBA loan.
Yeah, I think this one is particularly interesting, and it makes you wonder. I don't know how many of you are old school like me and still have a checkbook, but when you order checks, they get sent in the mail, and now we're being told the Postal Service employees stealing checks in the mail. So that's
hopefully
pretty.
This is very rare. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's not common, and I've never had an issue in life, but I'm just sitting here thinking, I just got an order of checks in my mailbox last week, and I'm sitting here thinking, how easy would it be for somebody to take those and do something like this with?
Yeah. Last story, Duo pleads guilty to My Buddy loans and EIDL fraud scheme.
Yes, this one is
My Buddy loan.
I'm quite interested in this one. This was a new one for me, at least. These two were working from home, calling individuals saying, hey, give us your personal information. We can apply for an agricultural grant for you with as little as 1 acre of land. So, of course, people would be interested. They managed to obtain quite a bit of people's personal informations, which they instead used to file EIDL loans. Actually, EIDL advances, they got over $1.5 million in EIDL advances, and I believe those only go up to $10,000. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, the
So
advances
yeah.
were $10,000.
That must have been quite a number of people. They also submitted another $1.44 million, but the funding had already run out, so those did not work out for them. In addition, because of these, they use Square credit and debit card processing, and using about 700 successful charges, they got $700,000 in fees. So they collected quite a bit.
Yeah, we talk about this every week, Lenny, on Fraud Friday, is that these fees were enormous for these individuals that were able to convince a lot of people to take out applications for SBA lending, SBA PPP or EIDL loans during the pandemic. It was, and now with what we talked about at the top of the hour, of extending those statute of limitations, and everybody's on board with all the acronyms, and the regulators are hunting down these individuals. So excellent reporting, Delaney. Always entertaining, and and these train wrecks are just, we listen to this every week. So we're going to be busy, I think, for a while talking about Fraud Friday. But Lance, what are we talking about next week? We're doing collateral, I believe. Yeah, are you in compliance with collateral requirements for 2022?
Yeah, we've got a webinar to talk about how to meet SBA's SOP 50.10.6 requirements for collateral. Are you doing the right things? Are you really taking all about available collateral? So we're going to have a discussion to help you develop best practices in underwriting in terms of collateral requirements. So very important webinar. I encourage you to see.
Very timely. And we are done with the compensation reports for 2022. If you participated, we should be getting those out to you in your own buckets. So thank you very much, Ms. Sexton and Lance, and we will see everyone on Monday for Coleman Report Live. Everyone have a good weekend, and that concludes today's show. Thank you very much.
Have a great weekend.